I have in the studio Williams Aggie. He's a 3D animator and, of course, from Arcos Interactive. Welcome, Williams. How are you doing?
Doing very well,
So,
thank
how
you.
is the life of a visual animator these days?
It's a very stressful one. Basically, you have to always keep learning, keep getting better, and curating your art to meet up with international standards, especially in Nigeria where we're still trying to grow the
To get
animation
the
industry
animation sector, yeah,
exactly to where it
running.
needs to be. If you look at the US, for instance, we have a multi-billion-dollar industry, and in Nigeria we have upcoming short stories. Every day. Like recently, there was one release called Iwaju, and
Okay, so before you get into all that,
okay.
Slates, I mean, I'm sure they saw the feature, but I want them to hear from an animator, first of all, who an animator is and what your job entails. Your kind of art, what does it entail?
Okay, so I would do a little breakdown.
Yeah.
So we have 2D and 3D animation, and we
Yes.
have stop motion.
Okay.
So 2D animation involves you drawing art, right, and animating it frame by frame.
Okay.
So in the olden days, we had artists drawing by hand, and they would have to draw every single motion frame by frame. And now we have more modern ways of doing animation called 3D animation,
Right.
whereby we have to create, a 3D model to mimic what reality is.
When you say create a model, how do you do that?
Okay, so we look at the reference, which is we could be a picture of a person, and then we start creating what we call polygons. So these polygons,
Not by drawing this time.
not by drawing this
Okay.
time, right? So you could use a mouse or you could use a graphics tablet.
Okay.
Yeah, so you're basically just creating these polygons to fill up the space and look like what a human looks like, or it could be an animal or an inanimate object, whatever it is.
I would say it's an uncharted waters.
Mhm.
It's not very popular. Someone like me, I'll probably think it's rocket science. It's a big deal. It's not that easy to approach, but you're doing it. And just like you, there's so many other animators who are trying it out, even though, like we said earlier, it's not so popular in Nigeria. So let's talk about how you got into this journey of being an animator.
Okay, I've been doing this for 8 years now professionally,
Okay.
and I started way back when I was in school, in secondary
You
school.
started with 2D.
Yes, I started
Okay.
with 2D animation, and it's been a beautiful journey. Back then, there were really many resources, so I learned through failing, failing over time,
Over
and
and over
trying out
again.
new things. As a kid, I used to be a fan of Marvel movies, so
Right.
I when I watched the first Spider-Man, I was really thrilled and enthused by what I saw, and that was how my journey started as an animator.
You said you've been doing it professionally for 8 years.
Yes.
So let's talk about, are there other animators, international, local, that inspire you, and how much of their work has made impact in your own work?
Okay, as far as international animators go, I would pick Andrew Kramer. Andrew Kramer is an animator and a VFX artist. Probably he's more on the independent scale, not working with a major studio, but
Okay.
he has his own studio. And he's someone who his work all through the years has actually inspired me. Secondly, I would pick Beeple. Beeple is an independent artist who actually has been doing animation for 13 years, right? Now, he's been animating for 13 years, and he actually had the greatest NFT sales of all time. He was creating animated content for 4,315 days non-stop.
Wow,
Yes.
I see you're inspired by the big dogs. You're not you're not doing it smaller. So, okay, so let's talk about how you conceptualize ideas, the whole storyboarding, how you bring characters, to life through your animation. How do you conceptualize that?
So, as an animator, you have to be very creative.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, I spend a lot of time meditating. I could just be listening to music and then staring at the sunset or staring at a beautiful field of flowers.
Wow.
Yes, I do a lot of that. I have a lot of alone time. So
Okay.
within those hours, I spend my time thinking about new things, thinking about what life should be represented as. And that gives me enough inspiration to redirect all that energy into creating something beautiful at the end of the day.
So it's safe to say that you're probably inspired by nature.
I'm probably
So let's go
inspired by nature.
technical now. We've mentioned that there are several animation techniques. You said you started from 2D and now you're doing 3D and all of that. So, but I want to know, besides just 2D and 3D, I like to think that there are other different types of animation technique. I may not know the technicalities or the words, the terms right now, yeah? But let's talk about the particular methods that you use, what drew you to that, and how you experiment, how you've been able to experiment between this and that to get to what you particularly use at the moment.
Okay. So as a 3D animator, you have tons of softwares. There are hundreds of softwares that you could use. When I started as an animator, I didn't have all the money to purchase most of these software. So I started from free softwares, one
Okay.
of which is called Cinema 4D. Cinema 4D is not widely an animation tool, it's more of a motion graphics tool.
Okay, so now this that you're saying is it different from the animation techniques? Because these are tools, but I'm sure there are technicalities to this. That's what I want to talk
Okay,
about. Yes.
technicalities. Okay, so way back, when you animate as an animator, you have the keyframe methods, right? So the
Okay.
keyframe methods involve you looking at reference. For example, you could be you sitting, placing your hand on your chin, and then taking your hand back down to your lap. You could watch that reference and try to mimic it, but you're using a mouse,
Okay.
right, to move the character according to that. Then there's also motion capture. Now, I think one of the techniques which I've been able to incorporate into my workflow is creating a method where I have a 3D scan camera. I use that 3D scan camera to capture my motion, and then I translate it into the system, whereby it makes it easier for me to animate the character. So I don't have to start from scratch all the time.
Okay.
I can incorporate that into my workflow, and it makes it faster for me.
And that makes it way easier.
It makes it way easier.
Everything has gone digital. And so I want to talk about how that has made your work a lot easier, how you've been able to incorporate the likes of AI and all of that in being more productive as a 3D animator.
Okay, so artificial intelligence plays a major role in our everyday lives, and I think with the recent wave of AI in animation, people felt it would take their jobs.
I was going to ask that.
Exactly.
Because it feels that way. It feels like you can just use AI to create anything.
Actually, AI is creating way more fields, creating way more job opportunities for people to incorporate those skills that they have already into their workflow. So it's like you're embracing something new and you're incorporating into your workflow to help you make your work better. So AI definitely has made my work better over the years.
So let's talk collaborations now. Do you collaborate with other artists, writers, directors to create to make great animation, like a great animation production process? How do these collaborations help your work?
Okay, so being an animator, I actually have a team as well. I run a small studio in Abuja here, and I would say I've worked with thousands of people all over the world because
Over the world?
Yes, most
Wow,
certainly.
okay.
You can't do everything on your own. That's something that animation teaches you.
Okay.
It teaches you to rely on others, to incorporate people's, thoughts, beliefs, processes into your workflow. And, you just have this seamless, pipeline that goes through the whole studio and the work process, right? So you're constantly working with different people and you have to collaborate a lot in order to, help your work get out there and produce something good at the end of the day.
Okay, every creative has to deal with some level of challenges, and yours, I like to think that your job is so much of mind work. So that I can't think of what the challenge will be, except maybe thinking of ideas or how to put it. So let's talk about some of the ideas that you've had to deal with as a 3D animator.
I think top of the line would be sleep.
Oh, you stay up most of the night?
Yeah,
Okay.
so you get way less hours of sleep. If you really want to be a good animator, you need to sacrifice a lot of hours. You need to put
If
in
you
that
don't
work.
sleep, how are you able to come up with great ideas or even give your best?
Okay, so here's the thing. When you brainstorm, you spend all that time putting in all the work. When you're done with a project, the best advice is never to jump into another project.
Okay.
You skip out a couple of weeks and you take that time to get well-earned rest. Once you get that rest, you're trying to dodge burnout, because when you're burnt out as an animator, you can't do anything. You just lose that creativity, you lose that workflow. So when you're leaving one project, it's always advisable to take enough time to rest, and then you jump back into the next
So
project.
you earlier mentioned a movie,
Yeah.
a Disney movie
Yes.
that was Nigeria,
Exactly.
Nigeria character. That's
Iwaju, yes.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. Have you done Okay, I'm not going to ask if you've done project like that, because that seems like the biggest animation we've seen
Yes.
in Nigeria. So let's talk about how seeing works like that, the impact that it makes, or how that inspires you to want to do more.
So projects like Iwaju, they definitely play a major role in inspiring me. I mean, when we saw the trailer at our studio, we're really excited to see something new, and we're actually working on something at the moment, and we're hoping that towards the end of this year or early next year we would have something out as well. So seeing it was definitely a major boost for us, because we're seeing creatives like us doing something new and getting to the global stage of even Disney, so it's inspiring.
That's nice. So before I let you go, let me just ask you this: what are your aspirations as an animator? Where do you see the animation industry in Nigeria going in the next few years?
I think it's going to be a major boom. There's going to be a major
Tell
boom.
me.
Yeah, it's going to be a major boom. People are really working on so many things. Apart from just the animation industry, the visual effects industry is really growing in Nigeria. The gaming industry is growing in Nigeria as well.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the gaming industry
Mhm.
too, but go ahead, finish.
Okay, so these industries, they are seamlessly tied together. You know, you
Okay.
can't speak of one without the other. As an animator, you transition into VFX sometimes. As a VFX artist, you transition into games development as well. I'm a generalist, so I do all three. Yes,
Okay.
over the years, I've been able to touch a lot of things, and I see a major boom coming to the Nigerian creative industry. And I just see that no one's sleeping; everybody's working, and they're working for the progress. It's not just about money. They're really trying to grow Nigeria, the Nigerian creative space, and I see something great coming out in a few years.
Wow. Okay, so if they are working as much as you say, I'm hoping that in the next few years we'll just see them thrust their entire work at us like
Definitely.
immediately because you keep saying they're working, but we're
Yeah,
not seeing much of that.
yeah,
There is very little
very
animation,
little.
and then when we see that, it's nothing compared to the animation that we see from, bigger
Hmm.
industries like you
Hmm.
mentioned earlier.
Hmm.
Anyway, we wish you all the best, and hopefully, like you said, the animation industry in Nigeria becomes very big, and we begin to cash out of it like they do in bigger nations.
Indeed.
Thank you, Williams, for coming on the show today, and I hope we get to do this another time, maybe when you've also done projects like
Hmm.
Iwaju and the rest of them. Thank you for coming on the show.